walk in his counsel of keeping his holy and divine word. That's how we walk with him. And so when we look at that verse 6 and going on into verse 7, it says, can one walk in light and walk in darkness at the same time? It should be an obvious answer to that. But how would we answer that, anyone? Can we walk in light and darkness at the same time? Yes, one is one or definitely one or the other. We cannot do both because to be able to walk in light with Christ is to be in fellowship with Christ. Paul deals with that idea in 1 Corinthians, I believe, when he talks with the church about not being unequally yoked. This number 6. It says in the handout, what is fellowship? It asks the question, number 6, can we walk in light and walk in darkness at the same time? And that's true because Paul deals with that idea of one or the other. And so someone get 2 Corinthians 6, and we'll look at that. And start reading at verse 14. 2 Corinthians 6, brother. 2 Corinthians 6, we start reading at verse 14. And Paul gives us a contrast of the two ideals. The concept of light and darkness, the concept of right and wrong, the concept of good and evil. How do we navigate those in the face of this, as Paul called it, a wicked and deceiving and wicked world that we live in? So Paul explains to the Corinthians that with God, we have to have equality with God, which means that we have to have sameness with God, and there cannot be imbalance with God. He uses a word called unequally yoked together. And what kind of, when you hear the word unequally yoked, what does that bring to mind?
Paul gets that statement from the old law, brother teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Under old law, I believe Leviticus says it was against the law to yoke an ox with a horse.
That's right, or mute.
Ox were bred to pull heavy loads.
Yeah.
Horse was not. And they were told under the old law they were not to yoke those two together.
That's right.
So it is with a Christian and a sinner. They speak two different languages. Was it Amos that says, how can two walk together?
Except they be agreed.
Except they be agreed.
Yeah.
So that's where that term comes
Yeah.
from the old law. Putting an ox
Yeah.
on a horse.
Yeah. And so the idea of,
The law.
that's right. So the idea of equality, equalness, God has balanced, in other words, God has balanced the scale. If you think of it that way, God has balanced the scale, and he has given us balance with him. So we have equality with him because we're believing the same, we're speaking the same, we're doing the same. So since we have sameness with God, we have that equality, and we're not unequal. Like just to say, how can two walk together except they be agreed? And to do that. So when we think of the idea of not being unequally yoked, this is one of the texts that we sometimes people commonly apply it to many situations about not being unequally yoked. We many times find it being used in the marital issue when it comes to that. When we have young people who are dating and looking for their mate, we kind of use this scripture in a common way outside of its biblical definition that is given, context that is given. Yes, Jesse.
Jesus during his lifetime
Mm-hmm.
Against itself, cannot stand.
Yeah.
If Satan, he asked the question, because they accused him of healing by the power of Beelzebub.
That's right.
He asked him, use the question. If Satan fight against Satan, he can't stand. So I'm not a part of Satan. I'm a part of God. So if a house divided against itself, you have to ask yourself a question. You know, a house will be one. You will be united. As Christians will be united. What does a Christian and a sinner have in common? They speak two different languages.
That's true. One walks in darkness, one walks in light. Jesus used the phrase that men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are what? Their deeds are evil. So people who are sinners, you know, everything they do is considered evil. There is no goodness in sin. And so that's why Isaiah said that the righteousness of the common man is filthy rags. He cannot bring that to God. It's unacceptable to God. There's no good that he can do as a common man outside of God's grace. He has nothing to offer God that's worth anything, because the way Isaiah explains it there, his righteousness, the best that he can offer God, is filthy rags. And that's unacceptable to God. So Isaiah tell him, you know, that come, let us reason together. Though your sin be as scarlet, it should be white as snow. But it requires us to come and reason with God. So therefore we can find balance. And we find balance, then God can cleanse it. God can make it a value. But unless we do that, we don't have that value with God. We don't have that equality with God. So when Paul speaks of this unequal yokeness here, together with unbelievers, as just was said. So somebody go ahead and read that verse there for us.
But unbelievers, he put the key out.
Okay. So when we see that, would you say that? How would you explain that to someone when they say, "Well, they say, well, here you are, you walk around like you walk around with a halo on your head, just because you're a Christian, you know, and you have to explain this text to them. How would you explain that? Now they passing judgment on you. Just got to let somebody else answer. I know you know. They're basically have passed a judgment on you, saying that you're acting like you're better because than I am, because you got this halo on your head. You act like you're not going to do anything wrong, and only I'm the one that's capable of doing wrong. Like you're not capable of doing wrong, and they pass all these kind of innuendos at you. How do you answer them with this text here? Yeah, and that's the distinction. There is a separation between us and them. It's like when Jesus tells the story about that rich man and Lazarus, and he said there's a gulf fix. God creates, through salvation, God creates a gulf fix. He separates us and set us aside. So I can't walk with you and I can't agree with you because God has set me aside to serve him. Either I have to serve him or I have to serve you. And Paul answers that question as well when Paul says, what he says, "Woe unto me if I preach not the gospel," because others had challenged him, you know, about the things that he was saying. Paul said, well, I've been given a charge, and woe, you know, basically, destruction is to me if I don't do what God has laid upon me to do. Whatever the burden is God has laid upon us to do, and we don't do it. So basically, like you said, Annie, I have to tell my friend, you and I don't carry the same burden. Since we don't carry the same burden, we can't run together because my burden is different than your burden. My burden is given to me by God. Your burden is given to you by this world. And so we're carrying two different burdens, and I can't carry the burden of sin and the burden of righteousness at the same time. So, you know, I'm carrying the burden of God because that's who I'm in charge to. And you can call me whatever you want. Like Paul said, you know, they call you evil, they call you all kinds of names. And Jesus even said that, you know, they're going to call you names, they're going to hate you you didn't do anything, but they're going to find something negative to say about you because you have been set aside to walk in a certain way. Now, you can't betray, you can't betray the God you serve. And a good example of that is when people put us in that position, whether we're going to fold to it or we're going to stand strong in faith. Peter is an excellent example of that. When we look at Peter, remember when Jesus was carried to be crucified, and Peter had promised Jesus, I'll die with you, I'm going to be with you, ain't nothing going to happen to you. Peter made all of these promises, these bold statements, because I'm with you, I believe what you're doing, I believe in what you're doing, I'm standing with you, I'm following you all the way. But then when that pressure came, when they bring, I call it the pressure campaign, when they bring that pressure campaign on us and start pressuring us, Peter he feels the pressure campaign because it is so real, and it came at him with such a force of violence. It affected him. It was such a negative force pushed against him that how was he to respond under all this negative weight? Sometimes, like we see our kids in school, we talk about the peer pressure that they're under. Kids are pressuring them to conform to their way and not the way of the parents. The parents have told them to behave this way, but the kids at school say, no, you conform to us and not your brother. So they're under this pressure. And sometimes parents don't understand the pressure that the kids are feeling because all they know that I told you to do this right here, but how do I navigate that pressure? Because I'm under this pressure campaign. So here's Peter under the pressure campaign. Here we are under the same pressure campaign. People are pressuring us and challenging us to turn away or lay aside that which we have embraced so that we can identify with them. What are we to do in such a quandary as that? What are we to do? Because remember, we are charged to walk in light. And like Nora said, we can't walk in light and darkness at the same time. So what are we to do? But if you do it, you're going to offend somebody.
I just found out myself, I don't do that because I know what I am. I know what I stand for and what I don't stand for. So just like people bickering about their religion.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in that, so be it. I know what is right for me and what's wrong for me. I'm in a good state of mind. I can make my decision. But see, a lot of people, they want this information just for attention.
Mm-hmm.
To start something going, get the ball rolling and stuff. And see, like my dad always taught me, only person gonna argue by themselves is a fool and a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it's best just not to say nothing.
Yeah, because they're trying to bring you into the pressure game. They're trying to pressure you into something. But like you say, you because you know who I am. Like Paul said, I know who I am and I'm persuaded. It's just, Brother Glenn, just keep answering all the questions. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 And yeah, because if you vote a certain way, so they're gonna hate you and say, well, I'm gonna do this right here. Well, then I hate you. And like even with your religion, if you say, well, I believe this here, and ain't nothing you can say to change me. Well, I don't believe that, and I don't think we could be together anymore. And they come as if you've done some wrong. Don't call me. I'm not social. Well, that's fine. I'm still not gonna change. Like Nara said, I'm still not gonna change, even though you're trying to throw it on me that I'm doing something wrong. I'm not gonna change. And that's how people do it, even though they're the one in the wrong position, because they're the one away from God, but they want to pull you over there and say, well, yeah, it's okay for you to do this right here, because you're doing it in the name of God. Well, you can do what you want to do. Like Darcy, you can do what you want to do, but I'm gonna do what God says. I'm not gonna do stuff in the name of. I'm saying I'm doing it in the name of God without God telling me to do it. You know, and so they said, well, you know, I do this in the name of God. I dance for the Lord, I shout for the Lord. I do all this for the Lord, and I do it all in the name of the Lord. Well, if that, like you said, that's what you want to do. How to say, if that tricks your trigger, fine. But that's not what my Bible tells me. And so I'm going to do what my Bible says to me to do. And if that satisfies you, then you do that. But I'm not going to change. Because the whole idea, like I said, is that pressure game to get you to change, to get you to compromise. And that's Satan's strongest weapon is compromise. He said he wants us to compromise. And so that's what he compromised Judas when he got Judas to go to the council. And Judas takes that money from the council with the idea that, okay, the council is telling him, we just want to know who he is. And if you can help us get him to know who he is, then we'll get his money. And so he takes the money back to them. He said, no, this wasn't a bargain. Y'all wasn't supposed to come and take Jesus like that. That wasn't a bargain. They said, well, you made the deal. We ain't taking it back. It's your money. Do what you want. He threw the 30 pieces of silver down in the temple because he knew that wasn't the deal. But he had made the deal. And they wouldn't let him back out of the deal. And he was heartbroken because it didn't go the way they said. And they were using him to try to get to Jesus. And when it didn't work, it backfired on him. He was caught. And that's what Jesus said. Now you done betrayed me. They done deceived you and suckered you, and you betrayed me. What are you going to do? That's what compromise does. And so as Christians, we can't allow ourselves to be compromised because somebody said, well, I just really want to find out what Norris is. He say he a Christian, but I want you to do this right here, but I want to see. I want to see for myself because I've known him all my life. And they try to set you up with something just so they can get something. And then when you don't do it, and they say, well, wait a minute. Me and Norris, we've been good friends, and now I'm just wrong for what I did. Man, y'all, I ain't with this no more. Well, you the one that went over there and did it. Hey, it's done now. Ain't no need to come and tell me about it. So now that person caught up in it because they done deceived him. He done betrayed you, and now he don't know how to come back to you because he know it was a real dirty deed that he did. So there he's stuck, you know, unless he can find the strength to come back and apologize and ask him for forgiveness. He's gonna carry that secret in his heart to his grave. Yeah.
The writer asks some key questions. What fellowship have light with God? Well, I don't know if I don't know what fellowship is.
Yeah.
That's why I like Acts 2:42.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he said, let me read it. When he said here in Acts 2:42, and they continue steadfast in the apostles' doctrine and teaching and fellowship, and breaking of bread and in prayer. The word fellowship, for me to answer that question, I got to know what it is.
Yeah.
The word fellowship means mutual sharing.
Yeah.
Joint participation, a group of people with the same nature. Let me give you a good example. What got T.D. Jakes in trouble?
Oh, T.D. Jakes got in trouble?
Before he got tired of with that man, people used to pay, because I got co-workers used to pay money to go from Florida to Texas just to the Father's house. Because they would tell him and give money to this man. He in the eyes of many people were like a god until someone decided to videotape who he was associated with. And that caused his downfall.
Oh, he was.
I'm not saying that there are certain people that we are not associated with. Jesus associated with sinners, but Jesus associated with sinners for a purpose. He was there to teach them. He wasn't there just to hang out. So we have to even be careful who we. Let's suppose you saw me every day of my life. I'm riding around with a drug dealer. What would you think, Charlie? Can two walk together? Except they agree. So he asked that key question: what fellowship? Light and darkness have no fellowship. They don't coexist together.
No,
when
they.
light appears, darkness is gone. When darkness show up, light disappears.
Yeah. Darkness gonna flee from light.
Got to.
And so when we talk, I'm trying to get into the vines here. This is one of the books I was telling you that's good to have. that we can go to and get the biblical difference.
Henry or the other?
This is the Vines. Yeah,
I have Johnson.
yeah.
And I think I might have Matthew.
And so,
Breaks down those words.
and yeah, it says koinonia, communion, fellowship, sharing, in common. It's translated communion, and it is frequently translated. That communion is frequently translated as fellowship, like you were saying, the breaking of the bread, and then the other one is metoi. Metoi is partnership. So the sharing and the communion and the partnership that comes as a part of being in fellowship together, the becoming, that they should have a commonality one with the other. And so that's the fellowship, the definition of that fellowship, how we communicate, the word communicate, to live in fellowship, in other words, to commune together, eat together, joint participation together, to share in sameness and becoming becoming of sharing together. So all of these things are unified in describing what that fellowship is. And so the light and darkness, also like we were saying, they don't agree. Light chases away darkness, and darkness in this world chases away light. But in God, darkness can't chase his light, because he's light in all things. Hey, this is Brenda. Welcome.
Hey, how everybody doing?
All righty, we're talking. We're in what is fellowship, and we were talking about number 6. What does it mean? Can we walk in darkness and light at the same time? And so we were discussing that we couldn't, and we were looking at 2 Corinthians 6, chapter 14. Need somebody to go ahead and continue to read on verses 15 and 16.
Where you at?
2 Corinthians chapter 6, 15 and 16.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Brenda.
Okay, for we are unto God.
Wait a minute, 2 Corinthians 6.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. 2 Corinthians 6, the 15 to 16.
Uh-huh.
And what conquer has Christ with Belial?
Yeah, Balaam.
Or what part has he that believeth with an infinity?
Infidel, yep.
Okay, and what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people.
So we can see in this context, we can see the severity of what it means to have fellowship with God, because we are the temple of God, and God lives in light. So if we have fellowship with darkness, then God can't live in us, can he? And if we have fellowship with idolatry or idols, God can't live in us, because he cannot live in those places. Somebody, an old saint, just use a phrase like this here: God don't live in an unclean place. Anybody ever heard that before? And does that make sense? That because if we're doing the other, then we're defiled, we're unclean. And so there is a standard that God requires us to keep and maintain. And in maintaining that, we have that fellowship with God. We have that relationship. And 16 uses this word agreement. The word agreement means that something has been established between two parties. In other words, like a covenant. A covenant takes place between two parties. a contract takes place between two parties. It's like when we go to work and apply for a job and they bring us in and we have all these forms to fill out. And then they say, well, we need you to sign this form. It's called an I-9. The I-9 form is your contract. They're going to tell you how much you're going to get paid. They're going to tell you what services you're going to provide for them and what they're going to do for you. If they're going to give you company insurance, you get insurance, you're going to get so many days of vacation. Whatever it is you're going to get, it's going to be on that I-9. And if they fail to live up to the I-9, you can take that form to the EEO office and say, I want to file a claim against my employer because he promised me this, but he didn't live up to his part. And that's the only thing that you have to stand on your defense. So it's in everything we do in this age, there's always a form of agreement that we have to make. Whether we get a loan for a car or a loan for a house or even open up a bank account, we sign a form saying that we won't use that bank account for nefarious activities and stuff. So we sign an agreement, we sign a contract, and everybody has to live up to their part of that contract. If we don't, and we violate it, then that gives the other party the right then to come against us, file actions against us. Why? Because we broke covenant. So when we break covenant with God, they give God the right to come and file an action against us. And the charge that God files against us, what kind of charge can God file against us after we become a Christian? Yeah, he can give us the charge of death. He can put the charge of sin back on us because we have broke covenant with him, like Israel did. Israel had a covenant agreement with God, a beautiful covenant that God had been putting in place for over 420 years. When he got with Abraham and told Abraham all that he was going to do for his descendants, God worked on that covenant and shaped that covenant in place for 420 years. And then when he rolled it out and gave it to him, what did they do with it? Now, Abraham lived up to his part because it was such a grand covenant, it was such a grand agreement, it was such a wonderful contract that God had made with his creature that Abraham was like, how could I not but do all I can for my descendants, for the benefit of my descendants? And then when the descendants come along, it's like us. We labor all our lives and all of our possessions that we get, and we leave. Because one day, Brenda, we're going to leave y'all possession to y'all children. Willie going to leave all his possession to Gabriel. And when we leave it to these children, how well will they follow on and using those things to benefit, to increase the quality of their life that we would intend for them to have, or will they squander it away? You know, when we're gone, we just don't know. But the idea is we're doing it for their benefit. And, you know, we're not doing it to hurt them, we're doing it to help them. And so that's always the big hurt, because even in this world, I don't know about you all, but I've seen people who worked all their lives and amassed so much stuff, and they left it to their children. And how did their children handle it? They squandered it. Yeah, you know, because I remember when I used to come down here, Ralph would talk with Brother McKenzie, and Brother McKenzie, he had a thriving lawn business going. And he had Ralph wanted this machine to do his yard, and he liked it, the snapper. And Brother McKenzie got that snapper for him. And boy, Ralph ride that snapper. He said, Brother McKenzie know his machines. And so his machine, he's got a business. He's got children. Someone to lead that he can lead his business too. And so I'm like, wow, they're gonna be so blessed. But then when Brother McKenzie died, all the stuff that he had, Sister McKenzie said, well, all the stuff he had, you know, I told my two oldest boys to take care of it so they could take care of me. Now I'm here taking care of them. and I was like, wow. And here's Sister McKenzie. She's of an age, she can't do anything. You know, she needs these strong men who've been set up to be able to continue on to provide. They've been given the resources that they need to keep the family going. And so I'm like, wow, look what we do to our family. Even in my family, my daddy was a citrus contractor. He had all this material, all these tubs and trucks and lifters and all that. And my brothers got riding and wrecking everything and getting drunk and high and selling the stuff off and looked around. Everything was gone. I know.
But see, because that's why you see it in a lot of families now. They go through it and they have so much conflict because try to groom that one, but then it creates a Cain and Abel situation. Now you is giving him everything, but you ain't giving me that. But we gave you something to try you, but you just squandered it. You have no interest in it. And so at least the other one over there got a little interest. So if I leave it to him, he might can benefit from it.
Yeah.
If you leave it to that one, you know he just gonna just blow it away. You know, just like that movie I'm watching, No Good Deed.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the same way. It's two brothers.
Yeah.
One was there and stuff like that, and one just hated it because the other one used his knowledge and wisdom and stuff, and the other one thought that he had it, but he was just a fool.
Yeah. See, that's the story of Esau. Yeah, that's the story of Esau and Jacob. Because the mother looked at, she said, well, look, Esau is breaking covenant with God. God told us how to keep ourselves as a people. But Esau have gone out to the Canaan women, and he done got him. He didn't get one, but he got two of them. And brought them home to the mother. She said, wait a minute. You think these Canaan women's going to take care of me in the custom of that our people are accustomed to? And so she said, well, I need to get one that's got a mind. So here's Jacob. She said, look here, Jacob. I'm going to help you. So when Esau went to go get the venison, she fixed up the venison and had Jacob put all his hair on him to go in there. And you tell you, because I'm looking out for my welfare. Your dad is blind. He's old. He could die anytime. He's preparing to die. And so I'm looking out for my welfare and for yours. Because you can't look to your brother Esau, because he done already rebelled. And so here go Jacob. Jacob takes the blessing. Now Esau, like you say, Esau is angry. You got a Cain and Abel. Esau wanted to kill him. But Jacob flees to his mother's brother's house, and he stays there. And then he gets to see there. So you can see this deception is all around. But you got to work through it. And he works through it because he gets Leah. He didn't want Leah, but that's what he got for 7 years. And then he had to stay doing another 7 years to get Rachel. And so now he did 14 years. But look how God blessed him. And so he's got to come home. Why? Because his dad is dead. He's coming home, and he's terrified because he said, when I left, my brother wanted to kill me. So now I'm going home, I got to be smart because he might be already laying in wait for me. So he splits his family up in two troops. So if one get taken out, the other one live. I see you, baby. One get taken out, the other one to live. But God had softened the heart of Esau over time because God had blessed Esau. But God had made his covenant with Jacob. And so that's the way the 12 sons of Jacob end up making those 12 tribes, because Esau didn't live up to his covenant with God. And so you're right now, the family, mothers and fathers have to look into their children. And they have to see which one of our children have a mindset to be able to manage business and to keep our wishes alive, to extend ourselves so that so our kids can prosper into their future. And so Jacob's children was able to prosper into the future because of what God had done through them. And so Israel became a mighty nation as a result, until they decided, well, we're so great, we don't need God anymore. And so that's where the church is today. So when we form that covenant with God, God's trying to form us in something. He wants to prosper us. Sometimes people in the church get upset when you use the word prosper. But God wants us to prosper. God wants us to have. But sometimes when we start prospering and having, if Norris start prospering and having, then why should I get mad at Norris because God blessed him? Whatever God got for Norris going to have. Ain't nothing I can do to stop it. But that don't mean that God don't have something. If I'm dealing right with God, that doesn't mean God don't have something for me. So I can have that fellowship with God. We all can have that fellowship with God. We all not be jealous of one another and talk about each other under the breath because somebody has something that the other one don't have. God is using that as a test. And that's why, the old preacher would always tell us, say, hey, look, God is not going to give you anything more than you can handle. If God knows you can't handle it, he's not going to put anything on you more than you can handle. And so if you can't handle the blessing, why would God set you up to sin? To give you this blessing for you to sin? He ain't going to do that to you. You know, you can see how easy that is to happen when we look at who Ananias and Sapphira, right? They had property, they sold that property. Ooh, and look at the blessing, the money they got so much money that they decided, well, we're going to cheat God. So these things happen, and you know, we as children of God, we have to be mindful and humble with God to let God use us and bless us in the way that He wants to bless us and increase us. But if we refuse that and become unequally yoked with God, trying to do it for ourselves, saying, God, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to get it anyhow. And there's a lot of people that do that. God, you're not giving it to me, or you're not giving it to me fast enough. You know, I've been praying, I've been asking, and it haven't happened. I'm just going to go and get it. You know, and we have to understand we can't force God. I have never seen nobody be successful in trying to force. And have you seen anybody successful who tried to force God to do anything? So we can't force God. And then when we get out there trying to fix it for ourselves, how successful do you find people who try to reject God and do it for themselves? How do they turn out? Yeah, in the end, they all messed up. It would just been better had we just listened to God, been patient, and trusted God, and stayed in fellowship with God. And in the end, God would have worked it all out for us. But, you know, that's why we have so much failure and so many people that get upset in the church and they get mad at each other and people leave, they have, but they ain't trying to give it to me. Well, it's not a matter of giving it to you. You know, it's a matter of helping you see what God wants for you, and you have that relationship with God so you can get it. We don't want to get in the way of your blessing between you and God. And that's one of the things that we understand too. It's not right for Norris, when God is trying to bless me in the way He's going to bless me, it's not right for Norris to get in the way. They say, well, brother, say God ain't blessing you fast enough, so I'm going to do this for you. Now what has he done? Yeah, now he's going to be he's acting the place of God for me, so he's my God, because I ain't looking to God no more. I'm looking to Norris to supply, because he has stepped into that place. Yeah, and so now, both me and Norris is in a bad place, because when God was working on me and trying to bring me along, I rejected God for Norris. And then Norris saw me and said, well, I'm going to show you mercy that God ain't showing you. So he decided to overstep God too. Now we both was in the fix. And it wasn't in natural thinking, it don't seem like it should work that way, do it? In natural thinking, I would think, oh, he just helping me. That's a natural way of thinking. But when you think godly wise, you have to consult God before you step out on the limb to find out where you are. And so when we're seeking to be in balance with God and God being in balance with us, we have to have that fellowship. We have to have that joint participation, that light, where there is no darkness between us. There's no line between us. There's no division between us. We're in lockstep with God. Our hands in God's hand, and God's hand is on us and leading us, and we're not pulling back. We're going through with God. And when we do that, we can have this wonderful fellowship, this relationship that the apostles talk about in 1 John. We can have a wonderful fellowship with God. But, our human thinking just get in the way sometimes, and it messes us up, and then we get angry at everybody else because we done messed up. And, but it's not everybody's fault, and that's where we have to just pray for our brothers and sisters that they will come to the understanding, that they will be enlightened. And then we just have to share good words of God with them. I see you, baby. Share good words with God with them to help them come along. We're going to stop here. We'll pick up on number, I think we really thoroughly gone through this way on number 6. So we'll pick up 7 and 8. 7 and 8 on next Wednesday, as we get together. Somehow we lost Jenny, but we got Brendan, we got Willie, and we lost Jenny. Y'all, Annie, can y'all help Jenny? Because she be trying to, I don't know, she don't know how to quite mute it, so she turned herself off. And then she tried to get back on, and I don't know, Benita might have to get her back on, because I don't think she knows how to get back on. She can get herself back on. Can y'all show her how to do that? Because every time she goes, she said, well, the brother said, I just couldn't get back on there once it went off on me. So help her get back on. But see, it's in all of our families that we struggle with the issues of life and with family members. And God is so good and rich towards us to show us mercy and kindness that we can pray for each other, we can lift each other up, and we could all benefit. You know, even I look back now and I say, you know, God blesses the family a lot of times in spite of themselves. God has blessed my family in spite of ourselves. And I told Wayne the same thing. I said, God has blessed you in spite of yourself, because look at the goodness of God. You're still here. You know, whether it's sickness or health, God still have y'all here. And y'all still have meaningful purpose in Christ. And so I'm always trying to encourage him and his family. His sisters are great, but encourage him to come and participate more, because those rich blessings that God have. And we all go through that. We just have to look, when mom and dad is gone, we have to keep on keeping on and trust God to bring us through like he did mom and dad, because that's what I do. And I see the goodness of God in my life, and I'm praying that that same favor God showed me, he will be merciful towards my children, who a lot of times don't follow my admonition or my direction. But I know that for my sake and the sake of those who are righteous in our family, God showed them great mercy. So I just keep on praying and supplicating, praying and asking God for help on that behalf, that their hearts could be turned back to him in a way that is beneficial to them and to their salvation. Is there anyone tonight that's standing in need of prayer that might pray for you and with you? Sister Annie.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Brenda?
Yes, somebody for prayer for my husband Leroy Gaskew. He's not feeling well. Also for my granddaughter Deshauna Ribeiro with the issues and problems that she's going through with, and also for us with financial problems. And just pray for all of my family.
Amen.
Do it all.
Amen. Sister Deborah. Dorothy. All right. Kim. Pray for who? Oh, okay. Pray for Lexus. Okay, so we have family prayer. And I should actually keep praying for Benita. She's getting better. There's some things that she still has to overcome, and some changes that need to be made. We want to keep her in your prayers, that God will give her the strength to recover her much more health and strength, that she'll be able to do those things that she so desired to do. I also continue to pray for all of our brothers and sisters who have been affected by the hurricane. I was contacted by Brother Jamel from Auburndale that they lost half of the roof on their building in Auburndale, so they're trying to work through FEMA business program to repair the roof over there. But I told them that I'll come over and if we can, you know, send them something to help along. We might be able to raise $100 off or something like that to give them to help towards them getting their roof repaired. But we were able to, God blessed us to not have to suffer that. So we can try to do our best to try to encourage them to overcome what they're going through. Is there any other prayer request? Just how your niece is doing? Okay then. Well, if that's it, then we're going to ask Brother Jesse to give us our closing prayer, and we'll adjourn for this evening. Remember, it's going to be 7 and 8 next week. The Lord said the same. Well, no, next week is when is the last Wednesday? Week after next. Okay. And we're going to combine the birthday celebration for 2 months, for the month of September and October, right? Okay. So that's what we'll do. Let us together stand.